Okay, back to Mishlei 22:16. Okay, and this is difficult. All right, let's try this again. Okay, Oshik dal laharbos lo, nosein laashir ach lamachzor. One who extorts a poor person to increase for him. One who gives to a rich person, it is only for loss or for lack. Okay, and what were the other weird translations? We had Sadigon who says one who oppresses. Let's say we said extorts. One who extorts a poor person in order to increase for himself or to give it to a rich person. So you've added the word or, okay, that there's two cases. Behold, it is all for loss. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Targum says one who extorts a poor person increases bad for him. So he said increases bad for him. Okay. Unclear who the him is. And one who gives to a rich person, hey, one who gives to a rich person, it is a loss or a lack for him. Alter says one who oppresses the wretched but makes him increase, one who gives to wealthy but he comes to want. Okay, and then we said that is weird because he doesn't really say what the outcome is. Okay, so again, let's just keep our eye on the ball here. One who extorts a poor person to increase for him, one who gives to a rich person, it is only for loss. Questions. Okay, if this pasuk is stating two wrong decisions, okay, like these are both bad, so what would be the corresponding right decisions and the results? Right. In other words, what's the opposite? If this is all one bad, bad, what's the good thing to do in this case? What is the relationship between these two cases such that they're in the same pasuk? In other words, what's the subject of the pasuk? Okay. Two, what are the scenarios here? That's our big question, which is what exactly are you doing to the poor and the rich? Like, are you stealing from them money? Is it, a gift of like something else? In what case would a person extort the poor, and in what case would a person give money to the rich? Is it being done in public or in private? What would the motive be? Is the idea confined specifically to these two cases, or could it be extended beyond? All right. So what are the cases? Three, is the pasuk talking about a one-time action or habitual tendency? Like, is it one who regularly extorts a poor person, or is it like even one time if you extort a poor person, then you're in this pasuk? Four, what are the definitions of dal and ashir in this context? So we noted that dal might mean like not just monetarily poor, it might mean like lacking in other ways, it might mean someone who became poor, we don't really know. And then ashir also, like how wealthy, is it like relative, Five, how is the extorter increasing for him, right? Laharbos lo, who is the him? And we also said, like, whenever you extort someone, of course you're doing it to profit for yourself, presumably. So like it seems redundant that it needs to say in order to increase for him, So like, what is that even qualifying? Also, does this, let's say you extort the dal, but not laharbos lo, whatever laharbos lo means. So then does that mean you're not in this consequence? Whoever posted it in the chat, you can just say it. I'm not going to read it. Six, what is laharbos lo? If that's the classic case, you extort to increase for yourself, then what does laharbos lo add? If laharbos lo means something else, what does it mean? Seven, what are the consequences here? And then what does lamachzor mean? That's going to be another big question. I'm just going to highlight these because there's so many questions here. I want to keep our eye on the ball. What is added by the qualification of ach? It's only for a loss. Would the machzor be different in each of these two cases? 8, is this really true, right? Do those who extort the poor really end up only with loss? Do those who give to the rich also really only end up with loss? And then who is the audience? What is the practical implication? Okay, those are our questions. So we had a couple approaches yesterday. Eli and Ariel both wanted to say that the audience of the pasuk is under some delusion that by extorting the poor or giving to the rich, then he will increase his own standing. Like he'll become, I don't know, when you steal from the poor, you're going to get more rich, or if you give to the rich, then they're going to like you. You're going to try to increase yourself. And the pasuk is saying, no, in both cases, you're going to end up with wasted effort. But our question is, how does that work out? And then Sean's approach was the pasuk is talking to someone who is trying to exploit a vulnerability. So with the poor, you can extort them and get away with it because no one's defending them and no one cares about them. And with the rich, like if you try to give to him, you're like making him indebted to you somehow, that was the theory. And then you're going to end up lacking, but we didn't really know how. Okay. So I don't mind, by the way, if we kind of like start fresh. Okay. Cause like, this is a difficult pasuk. Yeah.
What changed since yesterday?
Nothing. It's just a new day.
No, since it's a difficult pasuk since yesterday. Like, why start fresh now? Like what?
I don't know. I just feel it's difficult today. Oh, I know what changed. I looked through the Mefarshim and didn't get anything. No, it's not that I didn't get anything, but I saw that they also seem to have a difficult time. Yeah.
I have a thought.
Oh, sorry. So just 1 second. I forgot that when I talked about the Mefarshim, there are 2 other ways to read it. Okay, that I did find. Okay, one is Isaac's hot take that I thought there's no way to read it that way. The Ralbag does say, okay, Isaac wanted to say Oshek Dal does not mean that if you extort the poor, it means if the poor person steals. Okay, and I'm not going to read the Ralbag inside because I don't want to bias us in terms of how that's going to work out. So I still think it's a forced read, but okay, whatever. And then you know how we noted yesterday that there's no word "and" here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we saw that the Sadigon and most of the Mefarshim deal with it by putting "or," right? Or "and." They just add in the word. Okay, Rashi, who I am going to show you the pshat, says laharbos lo, okay, laharbos osher, so one who extorts the poor to increase wealth, no sein la'ashir ach lamachsor. He learns the entire second half as a consequence. Okay, we were learning this part as the case, one who extorts the poor and one who gives to the rich, and we were learning the consequences ach lamachsor. He goes like this: one who steals from the poor, no sein la'ashir, will, okay, sofo, in the end, shenosin mamona l'malchei ha'umus. In the end, he will give his money to the kings of the nations, okay, like non-Jewish kings, ha'ashirim, who are rich. Okay, for our purposes, I think it just means like people who are in power. I don't think it means like kings. If you're in a kingdom, you're not going to give to multiple kings. Okay, it's talking about like people in power. The achla machzor huba, and then you're going to end up being in a state of loss. Okay, so that makes it slightly easier. I'm actually just going to write this here as an alternate translation. Okay.
Never in trouble when you use Rashi.
Just to reiterate, I appreciate your joke. Just to reiterate, I have nothing against Rashi personally. It's that his approach is so radically different from our approach to Mishlei generally that I don't go to him as a go-to of the Mefarshim. But in cases like this, where he's actually giving like a pshat, then he's Rashi. He's the Rashi that I do like.
Only when he's giving a shot.
Yeah, only when he's giving a pshat. Okay, and his non-pshat ideas are good too. It's just they're not my go-to ideas. Okay, so he says one who extorts the poor to increase wealth for himself, in the end, he will give his money to the rich and powerful, and will only suffer loss. Yeah. Okay. So David.
Okay. Thought back to the reading that we were having yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off,
Tell me if you want anything on the screen.
I guess it's not too.
Okay.
So firstly, I do think it is a weird strategy to go to those who don't have money to take money from them. Like, I think like if you're going to want to like get money from somebody,
Right.
better to go from a source that has bountiful money and not a source that has very little money.
Okay.
Okay. So I think what will be happening here is this guy's probably going because these are the easy people to
Yes.
extort.
Right.
Okay, so that's
That's the advantage. Right. Easy targets.
So I think what would happen is if this guy keeps doing it, so he'll get easy money from this guy, easy money from that guy. And assuming also, the other thing I would assume that this guy is looking to gain favor from the rich people or get some way that he's gonna like get a foot up.
Yeah.
So if he continues to do this, he's going to have to, because he's going to a small source of money, he's going to have to get more and more radical about how he's getting money from these people. And I think if this continues and he keeps scheming and this builds up,
Yeah.
people will see this guy is trying to wreck all the poor people, like these poor people, and that will then get like a lot of dirt on him, and people will be very disgusted and turn away from him, and that will then lead to a complete loss.
Okay. So let me take the part that I understand and then ask on the part I don't understand. Okay. So David's saying, why are we focusing on extorting the poor? That doesn't seem like the best source of income, right? Target the rich, right? So the answer is they're the easiest targets because no one cares about them, and you're not gonna get caught, right? However, in order to get money from the poor, you're gonna have to steal from a lot of poor people, right? So you're going to engage in this behavior a lot, and that's just going to increase the reputation of you as someone who is a thief or who like takes advantage of people, et cetera, and that's going to end up being bad. Okay, my question, the part that I don't quite get, is what does the nosin la'ashir have to do with anything? Like, what's that case, and what does that have to do with the idea?
Okay, so the nosin la'ashir, I was thinking, and I don't think this is necessary. I was thinking that if this guy is doing it to then say like have money to give gifts to rich people or to do something to
Yeah.
find favor of rich people, especially if he doesn't have it from his own source of income.
Yeah.
And he needs to turn it somewhere else. That's why I was saying that this would be like some extra giving to rich people. You are saying that it isn't necessarily.
I'm saying, so why do we need that in the pasuk though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
Yeah. Especially because the way that we saw it, like according to the standard way of reading it, these two are like on par with each other, right? And according to the way Rashi's reading it, then that's part of the consequence. So like either way, it's not dispensable. It's not a detail, right?
Could you read it as in a similar manner, maybe taking from the poor, or if the guy were to be doing this, with giving money to the rich, that if you were to keep giving money, keep giving money, to be a similar type of, these would be different tracks of action, but similar concepts.
Okay, so let's work with that then, right? So now the question is, why is he giving money to the rich, and then why is he going to need to do this a lot, and then how are both these going to end up being a loss for him? So why would you give money to the rich, and why would you need to do it a lot? I think I have an answer. Yeah.
Want to find favor with the rich, and so you give them the gift once, but then don't forget there are a lot of people doing it.
Okay, I think there's more primary reason why you're going to need to do it a lot for the rich.
Yeah. Can I try?
Hold on just a second. What was that?
You hope that you'll be somehow compensated or paid back.
But why do you have to do it like? He's saying you're doing it like a lot.
Does it need to be a significant amount?
Yeah. Right. Because what happens if you just give them a little bit? It's nothing, right? In other words, you're going to need to make a big impression on the rich, right? So they're either if you're talking about one rich guy, you're going to have to give him a lot of money, or if you want the reputation of someone who is like supporting charity and you want the attention of the rich, like like when shuls or schools like have the whole fundraiser thing and they like have all the brackets and the rankings. No one reads all of the like supporters. They read like founders and like, the big names, right? So like you're going to need to like deplete your money a lot in order to have this effect, which is going to be like a bad investment. Let's develop the consequence, but I want to hear what Chaim was going to say. Yeah, Chaim?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because like the nature of like money and the nature of people who are looking to get money is that like it's like an insatiable desire. So like, and they're gonna see you giving them. They're like, oh well, I can get money from this guy, so I want more and more and more and more. And then it's like a never-ending like cycle.
Okay, so that part is true, but what I want to try to do is unify it in what David is saying. So let me just like set it up again, right? So we're saying that in both cases of stealing from the poor and giving to the rich in order to gain some sort of advantage, which is kind of in line with the approach that Eli and Ariel were taking yesterday, right? In terms of the harbos lo, obviously you're doing it to like gain, but it's saying like, it's using this vague term of gain because it's trying to gain some sort of like elevated status in some way, right? So I don't really know what that is, whether it's through money or through charity, whatever it is. So the point is that you're going to need to do this a lot, and you're going to end up depleted. So you're saying that in the case of the poor, you're going to end up depleted because the reputation is going to get out somehow that you are taking advantage of the poor, right? Example of this we said yesterday, I think at some point, is extortion is not only stealing money, it's also like, let's say, oh, here's an example of this, right? What major company that we all use and love often gets bad press for taking advantage of its workers? Amazon, right? So whether or not that's true, they definitely have that reputation. I mean, it seems like it's true because it's, a lot of stories about it. So they got this what do you call it? They got this reputation of like, they take advantage of their workers, right? So, and they're doing it on the small scale. Like they're really just saving like little bits of money, but it adds up. And on the flip side, if you keep on, in order to like win favor among the rich, you keep on giving to, like bribing the rich people or giving them money, it's going to take a lot to gain and maintain their attention as someone who is going to pay back, and it's not worth the investment. So I feel like we're like 90% of the way to an idea. Okay, so what's like I need the punch. I need the like what's the and I feel like these are two different people. That's the problem, right? In other words, is this talking to one audience? Like we're saying structurally it's one mistake, that the guy thinks, he doesn't think about how much he's going to need to do this in order to get ahead. And, it almost makes me want to say that this is a categorical mistake in investment. And I don't mean investment like money investment. I mean, like there are certain things that people do that on paper look good because you're like, oh, this will equal money, but you don't envision the frequency with which you'll have to do this. and the net cost of the frequency. You just view it as though the cost is only a one-time thing, like you say, like, oh, my plan is I'm going to make a big donation and get the attention of all the rich people. And you don't think through the fact that you're going to have to do this a lot, and it's going to cost you a lot in order to do this,
What's your challenge?
My challenge is I feel like the two halves of the pasuk are now next to each other, but I need them to be fused to one. I need one idea. What's the subject of the pasuk, I guess, is the question. And I'm theorizing right now. I'm theorizing this is a mistake people make when they're engaging in a cost benefit analysis, is that they don't factor in the quantity of the cost benefit of the reps. Like you have to, they don't realize, they just think of the formula, steal from the poor, get money, give to the rich, get favor. But they don't think I'm going to need to do that a lot. And I'm going to need to do that a lot. And there is a cost to the amount of times you're going to do it. Maybe that's the idea. I feel like I'm talking myself into it. Have I taken the idea beyond, is it still in line with what you're,
Nicely further down the line.
Okay. All right, I'm content with that.
I'm still trying to understand the percent of the pasuk though.
I want to come up with examples of this though, by the way. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the percent of the pasuk, but how do you keep on extorting the point?
It's not the same person. It's that you're going to have to do this with a lot of poor people in order to accumulate any significant amount of money.
Is it like a meter?
Yeah. In other words, this person is going to, well, I don't know if mita is the right thing. It's going to have to be a way of life. Like this person's going to have to do this a lot in order to, to get money. I'll give you an example, which is not really relevant to us, I hope, is, there are people, okay, like thugs, right? Like street gang people, who, well, not street gangs maybe, but thugs, they mug people, right? And I'm sure what they're thinking is, oh, I'll mug people and take what's in their wallet. Okay. And that sounds great. But the problem is, in order to make a steady income, you need to mug a lot of people. And that's ultimately not going to turn out well for you, because that's a risky endeavor, and many of these people who you mug are also going to be poor, and they're not going to have a lot of money, So if you're going to steal, then go big, at least that's the advice that this pasuk is giving, and then let's think of the nosin la'ashir. Oh, here's an example. Okay, you not by your situation, but you reminded me of the workplace dynamics. Okay, so many times you'll have an employer, okay, and you will want to win favor from your employer, so you'll do something that is like going above and beyond the call of duty in order to get their attention, right? To be like, oh, this is a good employer, and you think to yourself, oh, they're gonna see this and they're gonna get all the hearts in their eyes, like, oh, this is the best worker ever, But you don't realize this employer has so many employees, he has his own priorities and stuff. It might make a little blip on his radar, but you're gonna have to do this a whole lot in order to elevate your status to someone who is like, who he views as like this employee of the month type material, and you have to ask yourself, it's not that that's bad, it's that you have to realize that's the investment it's going to take in order to get the result you want. You can't just do it as a one-time thing.
So isn't the idea just a miscalculation in your process?
It is, but see, this is the tremendous chiddush of the pasuk. When I guarantee, when we all started learning this pasuk, we thought it was about stealing and giving. And what I'm saying is it's a mistake in pro and con analysis in general, in terms of investment in general, of like your efforts. And that's, to me, that's like a finish. Yeah.
Yeah, just another thought from the example you gave me could also tie into the idea.
Yeah.
That if you're, say, like raising that status, if
Yeah.
you're raising status that you get that employee of the month type of,
Yeah.
if you ever drop from that, you're going like kind of like putting your foot on the gas even more.
Yeah.
Once you start letting off because that's not a sustainable thing,
Yeah.
you'll drop more. And
Right.
Like you could have just been, okay, you're a fine worker.
Yeah.
But now the expectation is you're an amazing worker. When you drop,
That's another good point.
you look way worse.
Right. That's another good point. The maintenance thing, and same thing with the income flow. If you are depending for your whatever your income on repeated acts of stealing that only bring you in a small quantity, you can't really stop that plan and hope to like continue to thrive. Like you need to keep it up. Like, and so you kind of like dug yourself into a hole. Whereas, for example, if you do a bank heist, right, you can live off of that bank heist, again, assuming you don't get caught in all the other pasuk in Mishlei that talk about the stealing, that at least you can it's a one-time deal, one more heist. That's what all the heist people say and get in trouble and have movies made about them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of the interpretation that we're defining extort not necessarily as stealing from the
Correct. Yeah, it's any sort of wrongdoing that nets you a profit.
Right. So then I think
In
that
anything.
this pasuk would be implying that this person who's doing these things is assuming that the poor person and the rich person are unaware of what's going on.
Yeah, that's definitely the poor person. Okay, well, I don't think so necessarily. You can argue against me, but I'll just explain where we're coming from. Poor person is aware but can't do anything because they're poor, right? You go up to a guy here's another example, right? You go to Manhattan, right? You have all these poor people on the street, with their money that they're collecting. You know how easy it is to just go and just grab bucket. They're most of the time they're asleep, right? You could just steal from all the poor people, right? So, but then let's say the person is awake and you steal it from them. Are they really going to do anything? Like, are the cops really going to come after you? Probably not. And the rich person, you are doing it to try to get their attention. So you're fighting for their attention, and they might not notice it unless you do a big gift or repeated gifts. So that's where I'm coming from. But what did you have in mind when you're asking the question?
No, I was thinking, I guess that makes sense. I was thinking that, right, these people wouldn't want to associate with you. I mean, the poor person doesn't really have a choice. They can't really.
Yeah, right. And I think the way we're doing it is probably the case according to our reading of the pasuk is, I don't think you really are in a relationship with this poor person. I think you're going and stealing from a lot of poor people,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sean?
Okay, so I have another interpretation, which is a similar phenomenon.
Yeah.
But is in line with Rashi's reading.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to Rashi. So Rashi read it as one who extorts the poor to increase wealth for himself. In the end, he will give his money to the rich and powerful and will only suffer loss. Yeah.
Okay, so I was thinking of like a person who, right? It seems like the focus is just on a person who's exploiting the poor. Right?
Yeah.
That's the main action here.
Yeah.
So the person sees, oh, there's a bunch of poor people here that I can exploit, and so
Yeah.
I'm going to get into the business of exploiting poor people.
Yeah.
Right. But the reality is, it is a business, and there's competition.
Okay.
Right? So once you buy into the business,
Mhm.
so at first you just start like small. Right?
Yeah.
And then as you get more proficient with it, you get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
But there's other big fish, right? Once you reach a certain threshold of big fish, then those big fish don't like you encroaching on their territory.
Okay. Right. That's a good
Right?
point.
And
Yeah.
so they're gonna start fighting and competing with you. right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when you're in a
Okay.
business which everyone's trying to subvert other people and
Yeah.
trying to capitalize on this very small pool of people that you can exploit, as
Yeah.
Devin said, right? There's
Yeah.
not a lot of money here. So
Yeah.
every little bit of territory counts.
Yeah.
Right. So then it naturally puts you into conflict with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, one point or another, someone is going to undercut you and
Okay.
and then all of your empire that you
Yeah.
acquired is going to go to the next.
Okay.
round.
I have nothing to add to the idea except asking could we just run it through an example or two? I feel like there are abundant examples.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of like slumlords who are
Okay. Yeah.
like,
What?
Slumlords
yeah,
Slumlords.
yeah, who are
taking advantage
taking
of.
advantage of the poor, and
Right.
then another person comes in and uses the law or whatever
Yeah.
to get rid of this person, then takes over his.
Right. In fact, you could say that it's another person coming in to take over his territory, or you could even say like this. I mean, what often happens to people in businesses, whether like slumlords or not, is they end up having to cook the books in order to conceal their money from the IRS.
Mhm.
And then that's the rich people in the government who they're giving, there's gonna be someone who is gonna not like the fact that you're gaining all this money
outside of their system.
outside of their system and outside of like other systems, and then they're just gonna swoop in. Yeah.
And
yeah.
so then for like the Halloween,
Yeah.
right? Because I think this is a phenomenon that most people know.
Yeah.
When you're in the nitty gritty of it, when you just see like this, oh, I'm just going to start with this one small person.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about the other people that are out there. When you start this operation,
Right.
you're not concerned that there are other people doing the same thing. You're like, oh, I'll just take my little piece of
Right.
the pie and then that little piece grows and then that's
Right. So here's another example. I mean, I just again, you can't talk about like starting off slow and illegal operation without talking about Breaking Bad. But like, if you start any form of like, of like Breaking Bad type scheme, you're eventually going to run into the cartel, right? Or if you start in Ozark, you're going to end up running into the cartel. There are going to be people who you find yourself in competition with in their business, even though you didn't frame it as business at first. Yeah. All right. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like to make like a really good example that even take this a little bit more to like another level.
Yeah.
Is Pablo Escobar, because at first he seemed to be like above the system.
Yeah.
He was able to like hire people, like just put out hits on cops.
Yeah.
People could bring him dead cops.
Yeah.
It was like $500. Like,
Yeah.
nothing. And
Yeah.
literally, it was
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Everything was twice about it.
Right.
He was robbing to people.
Yeah.
And so people like loved him.
Yeah.
He had so much money that to this day they're still finding it because it's like buried.
Uh-huh.
And you didn't know what to do with it.
The traditional method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But despite all of that, even though he maybe became greater than the system, his local system in
Yeah.
Colombia, then he ran into the US.
Yeah.
And the US at the time we didn't have any extradition.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, so Colombia then decided, you know what, all right, maybe we'll do extradition, like we'll agree to extradition rights to the US.
Yeah.
Just to get for them to deal with him.
Yeah.
And so for a little bit he tried to kind of cave in, like,
Yeah.
all right, I'll build my own prison. How's that?
Yeah.
So he builds his own prison. And then like
What a move. What a boss move.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, and so they sort of like, all right, but that's like he couldn't like help but like still running his business.
Yeah.
Just so like and so
Yeah.
they came, you know,
That's a good example. Yeah. I never actually knew his story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's now switch gears to a figurative reading, allegorical reading about taivah. Okay. I saw this in the Ralbag. So it's going to be towards the end of your packet if you want to look on. Probably the second to the last page, if I were to guess. No, the very last page. No, sorry, second to last page. I was right.
On each side.
On the left column, so tough kuf mem he, and the left side pasuk tes zayin. Okay, so I don't know if I understand this idea, but it caught my eye. Okay, and we're in tshuva season, right? So like talking about taivah is a good thing. Mishu oshek hadal, someone who robs the poor. Okay, so he says hu hakoach hamisorer latavos hagufios. So the poor person here is a metaphor for the koach hamisorer. There's no good translation for this. The emotive faculty, the motivational faculty, the thing that prompts you to seek taivah, to seek out your bodily desires. Okay, so let's just call it the psyche for a second, just to have a placeholder, and then we'll figure out what part of the psyche it is. So someone who robs the psyche, okay, shelo yitin lo mitavos of davar, that if you, someone who extorts, that you don't give it the taivahs that it wants. Okay, hine, behold, zehu laharbos lo. This will be for an increase for him. Okay, and I think he's learning that. Yeah, he's learning this as a good thing. Okay, we were learning it as a bad thing. He's learning it as a good thing. The more you conduct yourself in this way, then the more you reduce your desire for these things. Okay, and through this you will be constantly satisfied. So in other words, just plain shot here is he's saying that if you deprive, I think it might be the better example. If you deprive the poor, okay, and the poor being the part of you that is like looking for taivah, and you deprive it slowly and gradually over time, you'll diminish the taivah. Okay, and that'll end up being laharbos lo, good for you. Okay,
Starve yourself with these things.
Yeah. Now, by the way, after this, I want to read someone who takes the opposite approach also about the taivah. Okay.
Really like completely.
Yeah, we don't usually take this approach because we don't usually have time to do like the allegorical approach, but I thought this was interesting. And he says, Mish yitin la'ashir tavosav, someone who gives to the rich his taivahs. V'hu ha'ish hanimshach achar taivos. This is someone who is drawn after taivah. So this is now using, again, the psyche, someone who's trying to make the psyche that's richer. So if you're someone who indulges in your taivahs and you keep giving into it, okay, that will be for a loss. Okay, because you will constantly be in a state of starvation on account of your enormous taivahs. Omram, as Chazal say, Aver katan yesh bo adam, there is a small limb in man, masbiu ra'ev mar'ivo savea, that if you satiate it, it will starve it, and if you starve it, it will satiate it. Okay, and the little limb is not talking about your nose. Okay, right? So in other words, it's saying that there is an approach to dealing with taivahs that the more you feed them, the more they grow and the more they demand, and then the more starving they will be. But then the more you deprive them, then over time you will diminish them. Okay, so what's the havamina? It's a simple havamina.
That you can satiate it a little bit, like a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, you're right. It's a
Take small little hit.
it's a multi-dimensional havamina, right? So the havamina is that if you have a taivah that is being unsatisfied, you can satiate it. That you can satiate it by giving into it, right? So either like you're saying, give into it a little bit, and then that's all you're gonna need to do, or that like if you satisfy it, it's not gonna want anything else. And what this is saying is, no, that's actually adding fuel to the fire, right? We have to understand how this works, by the way. I'm just like explaining what he's saying. So the only way to really diminish it is to make it desire less, which is to stop feeding it. Okay, right? Yeah. So the question is like, how does this work?
Gremlins.
What do you say?
It's like gremlins.
Okay, I think you said Grammarly. I was like, that's a spell check program, but yeah, Gremlins. Yeah, I am not. I know it's an 80s movie. I'm not familiar though. Yeah.
Basically, you just don't. I think it's like don't feed them after a certain time.
Oh yeah.
Or they turn into gremlins.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll cribbing to it.
Right.
But more so, it's like an addiction.
Right. Well, there's a phrase that's coming to my mind, which I always forget what this means. Sean, you probably know this. What is the hedonic treadmill or hedonic adaptation? Anyone? I feel like the phrase is coming to mind. Let me just look it up. I saw it. Yeah. Hedonic treadmill. Let's just see this. The hedonic treadmill, also known as hedonic adaptation, is the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. That sounds good so far. According to this theory, as a person makes more money, expectations and desires rise in tandem. Oh, that's bad, which results in no permanent gain in happiness, right? So in other words, you try to satisfy the taivah, but it just brings the taivah up to crave even more, and then you have to like meet that, and then it's a never-ending pursuit.
Maybe short from last year.
Say again? Lady Shiur from last year. Yeah. I got to re-listen to that. Yeah.
Seem to kind of go against the whole idea of hedonism. Is that what that's trying to say?
It's saying hedonism doesn't pay out. It's on a treadmill. You don't actually get anywhere, and that actually fits in. Maybe that's why I'm thinking it, because it says achla maksor. You're only going to lack. Like you're not actually going to satisfy. See, that's the real fantasy. The fantasy is that you'll satisfy your fantasies. Right. And you won't. That's the nature of the fantasy, right. Yeah. So the problem I have with this is it is good, but it's too abstract, like I don't feel like this has the same like Mishleic like handlebars that allow us to like utilize the idea like in a practical way. Like, like if you're in the grips of a taivah and you tell yourself, well, if I satisfy it, then like I am, it's only going to grow hungrier. I don't think that usually stops you. So I think the place where you're going to have to approach this is in, I'm going to make up a new term here. Okay. Taivah architecture. Okay. Which is, we all have taivahs. Okay. And we set up our life around satisfying these taivahs. Right. And some good, some bad. Right. Okay. Like you have you could have a taivah for chachma and learning. You could have a taivah for like, whatever, So I think the place to implement this pasuk is not in the heat of the moment, because I think it's too late at that point. Like there are other methods that you can employ in the heat of the moment, but saying like, oh, if I satisfy this thing, it's just going to get hungrier later. I don't think that's going to work itself out. But I think you have to what do you call?
Set yourself up to not be in that circumstance in the first place.
And keep in mind this phenomenon when you're planning out how to fulfill your taivahs. Like, I'll give you an example without filling in details. I remember one time in a high school class, and someone asked Rabbi Moskowitz, some kid asked Rabbi Moskowitz, he said like he's struggling with a certain taivah that he can't control, like he can't stop doing the action. Okay, right? And his question from Rabbi Moskowitz was like, what should I do? Rabbi Moskowitz gave what at the time seemed like the simplest advice, but then the more I thought about it and the more I like implemented it in various areas, the more I realized he was right. Rabbi Moskowitz just said, he said, don't do it unless you can't control yourself. And when you can't control yourself, then give into it. But what he realized was like, this kid had set up his life in a way where he was like regularly like involving himself in indulging that taivah. And according to this, that's just feeding the monster daily, weekly, whatever it is. But the way Rabbi Moskowitz said it is like, don't feed the taivah until it's absolutely necessary. And if you can't control yourself, you can't control yourself. But saying I can't control myself, so I'm going to give in this one time is different than saying I'm going to make this a regular part of like my life structure, So I think it's very simple advice, but like it would work to diminish the taivah in this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about if this is like objectively true for other people, but
yeah,
I feel like when I wanted to say I can't control myself, or I look back at I couldn't control myself.
Yeah.
I like kind of know like, no, I could have.
Yeah. Right.
Even after the fact of being in a situation where I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Even then, I still had like I could feel like no, I could.
Oh, so let me show you a distinction, which I encourage you to read this article that I wrote. This is another term of coin. The term "kaddish atzmecha b'mutalach," sanctify yourself in areas that are permissible to you, right? So, like in other words, when that's like Novel versus Torah, Kedoshim Tihu, that like there's a bunch of things that are not usher, but like you should still exercise kedusha, self-restraint and self-control in those areas, right? Like, this food is not kosher, but with kosher food, there's nothing usher about overeating, but you should still be kaddish atzmecha b'mutalach. So I wrote this atzmecha. Let's see if I spelled it right. Yeah. So I coined this phrase kaddish atzmecha b'asrlach, right? Is that the main idea being that even in areas where you are doing something that's usher, like let's say you're going to do something that's usher, you should still exercise restraint. Right? There's this feeling that once you're engaging in something that's usher, then like I'm just gonna like close my eyes and like jump off the skydive. I'm just gonna give myself over totally. That's dumb. Like that is dumb. And I brought a raya. The reason I'm bringing this up is I brought a raya. There's this Gemara. This is a very controversial Gemara. Did I even talk about the controversial Gemara here? No. Hold on. No, I think I actually wrote about this in another thing. Hold on. Oh yeah, uncontrollable. Yeah. How to deal with an uncontrollable yetzer. So I don't know if you've heard this Gemara before. Again, this is controversial Gemara. Okay, in Kiddushin Daf Mem Amud Aleph, Rabbi Eli Hazakin said, if a person sees that his yetzer is overpowering him, he should go to a place where they don't recognize him, put on black clothes and cover himself in black and do what his heart desires and not cause a chil Hashem. Okay. The Gemara asked, is this true? Wasn't it taught in a brisa, if a person does not have mercy on the glory of his creator, he'd be better off not being born? To whom does this refer? Rabbah says to a person who stares at a rainbow. Okay, that's a whole other shiur. Rav Yosef says to a person who transgresses in private. Okay, so now, in other words, it's a contradiction. The first memra is saying that if your yetzer is overpowering you, you should go and do an avera in secret. And then this is saying that if you do an avera in secret, it's better off if you were never born. So it's contradiction, okay? So the Gemara resolves it and says, this is not a contradiction. The brisa, okay, this brisa refers to a situation in which it is possible for him to control his yetzer, whereas Rabbi Eli's statement refers to a situation where it is not possible for him to control his yetzer.
Which is what?
That's a good question, okay? But I'm going to partially answer that.
What's the nafkamina between those two?
So the nafkamina, so here's the thing, okay? And this is why Chizkiyahu's comment brought this up. If you see your yetzer hara overpowering you, apparently there are two cases of that. One is your yetzer hara is overpowering you and you can control it. The other is your yetzer hara is overpowering you and you can't control it.
I don't think the first one, how does it overpower you? What is it to me the
So
definition of overpower?
exactly, right? So the Gemara is forcing you to make a distinction where you might think a distinction does. In other words, you might think your yetzer overpowering you means that you can't control it.
Yeah.
So this is now saying, no, your yetzer is overpowering you, and there's a case where it's overpowering you, but you can control it. I'm not answering the question specific, that we have to figure out. And then where it's overpowering and you can't control it. And by the way, when it says it's overpowering and you can't control it, what is the Gemara saying you should do?
Go like hot, basically don't let anyone see.
Right. Go in private. But guess what? You're still exercising control.
Like, you can at least do that.
You're at least doing that. In other words, even within a situation where your yetzer hara is overpowering you and you can't control it, you can still do damage control. Right. So that's why I think the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to giving into their taivahs in areas of isser is they think that if I'm going to give into isser, I'm going to give all in. Okay. And there's a great movie which called Flight Plan with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
It's I think it's, let me just make sure I got it right. Denzel Flight. No, it's Flight, not Flight Plan. Flight. Okay, and the movie. Okay, this is not a spoiler because this is how the movie opens. The movie opens with he's this captain, and some crazy thing happens to the plane. Okay, and like the only way he can like land it is he flies it upside down and then like lands in the water or something like that. And like he's hailed as this hero, but then it's discovered that he's this, I think he's a cocaine addict, right? And so the movie's actually a movie about addiction, but it's him grappling with this fact that like he has this public adoration for being this like daredevil hero, but he's really grappling with addiction. And like, I don't know, if you watch that and then you think about this idea, then you'll see like it's the best depiction in any movie that I've seen of someone who says like, who exercises control over his yetzer, and then he gives in and he just gives all in, you know, and like, that's the mistake. Like, even if you're going to give into your yetzer, even if it's a devar avera, kadesh atmucha ba'asr la, you can still exercise restraint to do damage control for the public, damage control for your own taivahs, like in terms of this Ralbag thing, right? Like, you got to realize the more you give into your taivah, the more it's going to feed it. So if you have to give into your taivah, give into it in the minimal amount, right? You know, and this is the way that the yetzer hara operates, is the yetzer hara operates with all or nothing, right? Like Ryan Moskowitz always says, why is it that that people, even like even people who are like not so careful with traffic laws, most people stop at red lights, but most people drive past the speed limit. Why is that? Because he says the yetzer hara does not make quantitative distinctions. The yetzer hara is good with qualitative distinctions. Is it red or is it green? But saying 50 miles per hour, 50, 55, 67, you know, when it's quantity, the yetzer hara is very bad at distinguishing. So you have to, so that's the challenge, is that when your yetzer hara is demanding that you give into it, it's going to want either all in or not at all. But what you have to exercise your yetzer, your seichel to do is say, okay, if I have to give in, I'm going to give in a minimal way. I'm going to do damage control for reputation. I'm going to do damage control for my own like character development. I'm going to try to do it in a way where it's not going to have any consequences, you know, and that's better than nothing. Yeah, what are you going to say?
So this process you're describing, due to the fact that the yetzer hara can't, I guess, discriminate between quality or quantities.
Yeah.
It's like you're basically saying, even if you're going to give into your taivah, make sure you don't be confused and mistake yourself for your yetzer hara, you know? Right.
Don't identify too much with your yetzer hara, right?
Because that's the yetzer hara's move.
Yeah.
To go all the way.
Right. That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
And you're still the person giving in, which means there's a part of you that doesn't want to.
Right.
Giving in.
Yeah.
And so, remember, even in the giving in is still a more moral act, even in giving in, than becoming the.
That's actually a really good way to say it psychologically, that if you find yourself giving into the taivah and you say, I'm going all in, at that point, you have merged with the yetzer hara.
Right.
But if you say, I'm going to let my inner animal indulge in this one thing, but I'm going to hold it on the leash.
Right.
So then you are not identifying with your yetzer hara at that point. You're recognizing it's controlling you. It's like those, sometimes you see like what do you call it? Like dainty, like thin women walking monstrous dogs, right, that are being walked by their dog, you know, like that's kind of how you view, you know, if that's going to happen to your yetzer hara, okay, like fine, like, but don't be the dog,
right?
You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, and at least there, the struggle is continuing.
Yeah.
Like this, the worst defeat, but
right.
you haven't stopped.
Exactly. You haven't let go of the leash,
right,
or you haven't, well, again,
right,
that's I'm mixing muscle. Okay. All right. Let me just quickly do one thing. We're not going to work out this idea. I just want to read to you the opposite approach, which is in the Meiri, who says that the poor person is the yetzer hatov, okay, and the rich person is the yetzer hara. Sorry. Yeah. Right. You know, actually, now that I think about it, it is, maybe it's not the opposite. Maybe it does fit into the Ralbag. Let me just read it and then I'll summarize what we did so far. He says, Meiri. Oh, thanks.
Does that remind me of like the little boy?
Yes, that's the Meiri's mashal. So he says, this is on the second page. Uvaderech nister karahina yetzer tov dal. The yetzer tov is called the poor person. Kashmo hamiyuchalo yeled miskenu chacham. Right, the poor wise youth. That's Shlomo's mashal for the yetzer tov. Uvehevech kara yetzer hara ashir, and it's calling the yetzer hara the wealthy person. The amar she'oshek es adal. If you extort the dal, meaning if you rob the intellect, the gozel lo mechuko, and deprive it what is due to it, like what it is, deserves. Laharbus hahanal atma, in order to get benefit for yourself, pleasure. V'nosin la'asher kfi ratzona, and to give to the wealthy person, the yetzer what it wants. Ye achrisa l'klala u'l'machzor, then you'll end up in a bad place. So we're not going to work out that idea. I just want to read it. So let's summarize what we have so far. We have 3 ideas. Okay, idea number 1 is based on the it was my idea. I guess this is not any of them far from singly, which is that it's based on David's idea, right? Our idea, okay, which is that if you the pasuk is about a mistake that you make in cost benefit analyses, that you think that you're only going to engage in this thing once and it's going to get you the benefit you want, whether it's stealing from the poor or winning favor from the rich. But what you fail to realize is you're going to have to do this a lot in order to get the result you want. And in the course of doing it a lot, you're going to jeopardize yourself and risk losing everything. Okay, then we have Sean's idea based on Rashi, which is that if you extort the poor to get wealth, you become the biggest fish in that small pond. But at a certain point of big fishness, you're going to attract the attention of bigger fish, right? There's always a bigger fish. And you're going to he walked in 1 second too late. And you're going to then have to give your money to that bigger fish. Okay. And then there's the Ralbag's idea, which is this about taivah, which is that you might think that the way to quiet your taivah is to satisfy it, but that's only going to increase it more. And therefore you should recognize that when planning your life around your taivah. Is not in the moment of the taivah, like that's harder to do. But when you're planning your life around your taivah, do Rabbi Moskowitz's thing, which is only give into it when you have to. Don't schedule it into your day or your week, okay? And then if you are going to give into it, then still exercise restraint and don't identify with it entirely. And like you could at least do damage control for reputation, damage control for your own emotions, damage control in terms of like not increasing the taivah. Okay, good. That ended up being better than I thought. I didn't think we were going to get anything today. Okay, good. Okay, all right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you